When I returned to my apartment, there was a letter in the mailbox. It was a plain brown envelope with black ink. No doubt, it was from Yasutoshi. This made it the 30th letter from him. I was a bit worried since there had been a gap this time, but he seemed to be doing well. The handwriting on the address had a certain strength to it. I entered my room and opened the seal. Contrary to the envelope's writing, the letter itself was somewhat messy. I took my eyes off the letter and tried to recall something. I was starting to feel a bit tired from the unfamiliar driving. The winding roads of the deep countryside. The greenery had seemed beautiful for the first hour or so. Yasutoshi, sitting in the passenger seat, showed no signs of wanting to take over the driving. Usually, he's the one behind the wheel. Unable to hold back, I pulled over to a slightly wider spot on the side of the road and asked Yasutoshi, who looked puzzled, what was wrong. Switch with me. Kusuke, that's me, I'm currently under a driving suspension. I can't break the law. He said this while putting his hands together in a prayer gesture. This guy is the eldest son of a temple and is destined to become a monk. He's reliable in many ways. Come on. Is that really what you're going to say after getting a suspension for speeding? Seriously? And you still want to be a monk? I shot back at him. I'm reflecting on my actions, Kosuke. I swear I won't make the same mistakes again. So what are you doing, trying to provoke me? Have some shame. You devil. He pointed ahead with a cool expression. There was an old sign indicating that we were just 4 kilometers away from our destination for this trip. To come this far and then give up. What a pathetic guy. I guess I have no choice. For your sake, I'll commit another sin, he sighed dramatically. I could only respond with, that's enough. I'll drive. After a long and exhausting 4 kilometers, we finally arrived at the town, or village. We were aiming for. Here, we were set to meet another friend, Tomoaki, who was also from this area. The meeting place was the site of an old elementary school, and it was easy to find. Everyone we encountered was elderly, and it felt like we were the only young people in our 20s, highlighting the area's severe depopulation. Yet, everyone was cheerful and bright. Tomoaki approached us with a grin. Thanks for your hard work. Oh? Kosuke is driving? Well then, should we take a little break before we head out? I asked. Huh? Isn't this the place? Tomoaki replied, The goal is about an hour's drive into the mountains from here. Tomoaki. Driving. I'm a paper driver. It's dangerous. Laughs. This trip was definitely off-kilter. Usually, the 3 of us would have some kind of role distribution and enjoy ourselves together. But this time, Yasutaka was silent, and Tomoaki seemed oddly tense. I, who had been making a racket, was completely worn out from driving. Isn't this a bit off? Right. This time, it's not about sightseeing, part-time jobs, or hitting on girls. We came here to seal a monster. The story begins in spring, when it was still a bit chilly. I was either playing games or watching a DVD with Yasutoshi when Tomoaki came to visit. With an unusually serious expression, he asked if I could lend him a hand. I wondered if he had a fight with his girlfriend, and he grinned and said, "No, that's not it," then quickly returned to a serious face. Feeling a bit surprised, I encouraged him to continue. The head priest of the temple in my hometown is on the brink of death, he started to explain. Apparently, Tomoaki's family is one of 4 families that support the local temple, and when the head priest passes away, there is a certain role that has been passed down through generations. The role is taken on by the heads of the 4 families, but Tomoaki's father is unable to fulfill it due to illness or injury, so Tomoaki has to take over. However, since he is not the official head, he is allowed to have up to 3 aides. But it seems that the role itself involves special actions, and they couldn't find anyone locally to assist. As a rare exception, they decided to allow outsiders to help. I immediately voiced what I was thinking. You can't be serious, asking for help to make a monk's mummy in this day and age. Tomoaki laughed and said, no way. If it were just dealing with dead people, that would be easier. The opponent is a monster. The role is to seal the monster that comes to eat the head priest's dead flesh. He said this somewhat bashfully. A moment of silence passed. Me, you're kidding me, right? Tomoaki, no, seriously. You guys don't have to do anything. I think it will probably just end with you watching. There are just a few rules to follow, so as the other 3 aides, you just need to act accordingly. We will definitely not be attacked by the monster. At worst, I'll just have a fever and be delirious for 2 or 3 days. Honestly, I thought there would be more action. In situations like this, there are usually protective talismans, spells, or barriers. But it seems there's none of that here. Monsters are coming out from a certain place, and they're just sealed away in a specific way. We, the assistants, just need to be present. It's simply a spectacle of monsters. However, it is said that there are individual differences in what can be seen and not seen. I decided to go out of curiosity. I was a little worried because Yasutoshi, who is somewhat psychic, was thinking about it, but in the end, Yasutoshi decided to go as well. We decided that we would be the 2 bridesmaids, and Tomoaki was going back to his hometown first. Later that day, we went to the station to see Tomoaki off as he was going back to his hometown. Tomoaki had asked me to come as soon as he heard from us, and got on the train. I immediately asked, "Oh, what's the other guy's name?" I asked, and my friend just gave me a crooked smile. On the way home from the station, Yasutoshi was silent from start to finish. This man's character is not dark. He is so cheerful that it is hard to believe that his parents live in a temple. Why didn't he tell me the name of the demon? I, who could not read the air, asked him why he did not tell me the name of the demon. Yasutoshi looked at me seriously. You look like a fool, but when the time comes, you are dependable. You might be the key to what he needs this time. Do I look that stupid? Tomoaki said there was no danger. I said, a little surprised at the unexpected trust from the person I rely on. He lies to women, but not to us. But if there's no danger, why can't he find anyone local? Even in our industry, we don't speak the name of the abominable thing. The only reason he didn't tell us the name is because it's something we're not comfortable with. He's the one who comes out when the monk is dead. He's too much for me, a monk. Yasutoshi. Then why did you accept this story? It sounds really bad when I hear you talk about it. Do you want to turn it down now? Tomoaki only decided to go home when he heard we were going. He can't seem to escape from the local rules. I don't know about you, but I can't betray Tomoaki. I can't betray Tomoaki either. I want to save Tomoaki. 80% curiosity, but you're in trouble, right? I don't want to lose my best friend because of this decision. Yasutoshi. His one word turned my 80% curiosity into 80% or even 85% fear. A visit to see the demons. I thought it was just a little test of courage. I became silent. You are a simpleton. In fact, you're really worth teasing. Yasutoshi says with his usual smile. Don't make fun of me. I retorted and puffed up. The conversation moved on to lunch and women, but the fear in me remained somehow. The temple was a rather splendid one with a temple gate. I parked my car in the plaza in front of the entrance and walked to the temple, where a man in his 60s came out from inside. He said, "Mr. Tomoaki, are these your attendants?" Tomoaki answered yes and was about to introduce them, but the man held up one hand to stop him. The man held up one hand to stop him and continued, "We don't need to know each other's names." Tomoaki answered, "Yes, that's right. As a rule, you are not allowed to talk about what goes on here. But if you want to talk, you are free to do so. No one will believe me anyway. I myself still can't see. But everyone can hear the sound. That's how I know it's there. Now, as the other two officials are watching the priest, I will briefly explain to you what is going to happen. You can ask Tomoaki about the history of this matter after the sealing is finished. Then come this way. At first I was offended by the way he said it, but later I learned from Tomoaki that he was concerned about my and Yasutoshi's safety. He took me to an old stone well behind the left side of the temple. A wooden stick was placed in a mess to block the mouth, and it was covered with a bamboo basket-like object. We were told that demons were sealed in this well and that they were sealed with disorder and order. However, this seal is said to be broken on the 7th night after the death of the abbot, and demons come out from inside to eat the abbot. In short, our direct job was to make a new seal, and all we had to do was place a new wooden stick at random at the mouth of the well and cover it with a basket, called kagome, apparently. Here, the wooden sticks are placed in a distorted grid like you would place around a campfire, but with 7 on the first level and 7 on the second. The first step was to have 7 sticks, the second step 7 sticks, and so on. However, we were told to use only 8 sticks for the 6th step, and that only one of the 8 sticks was special and had some kind of curse on it. The remaining 49 sticks were dummies to protect this one stick. Incidentally, the number of steps to place this one stick in the chamber is different each time, and once the chamber is sealed, it is left to decay as it gets old. The next time the stick is sealed is before the next priest passes away, and when he passes away, the stick is sealed again. It is said that the well is sealed only twice before and after the death of the chief priest. The next time the well is sealed is before the next priest dies. No wonder the wooden stick is new. I had one question, so I asked. Me, were you sure you didn't need us to be there when you did this sealing? Uncle, it's good to be here, but I'm afraid to go back. This seal was made 3 days before the priest's death, and it is called Shinobaya, which means death cover, and it is not very powerful. It lacks a stick. It was made to be broken on purpose in order to seal the demon that became stronger after the abbot's death. So, what I want you to put together is an ikebita. This is a seal that prevents them from really getting out. This is important. It is the job of the youngest of the 4 Goyaku to make the raw cover, and of course, since Tomoaki is the youngest, we are the ones to do it. I understood roughly what our role was. It's probably the most important role. Tomoaki aside, the 2 of us are just support. Uncle said, well then, let's go to the main hall and worship the priest. Then we'll have dinner. I didn't want to see the body before dinner, but it was in a coffin, so I didn't see it, and the other 2 priests were sitting and chanting sutra. Today is the 6th day after the death of the body. I lost my appetite just by imagining it. Tomoaki, sensing this, said in a small whisper, it's more beautiful than you think because it's been properly embalmed. While we were relaxing in the temple's tatami room, an elderly woman offered us nigiri meshi, rice ball, miso soup, and a simple side dish. When she saw us, she said. She looked at us and said, thank you for your hard work, Sanyu Jutsuken Dono. She said Sanyu Jutsuken Dono, Sanyu Jutsuken no Gozamasu. I said, what is Sanyu Jutsuken? Naturally, I asked Tomoaki. For some reason, the answer came back from Yasutoshi. I think it means to help with childbirth. I think it means to help in childbirth. Tomoaki, exactly. And you think it's strange, don't you? Me what? Tomoaki, because we're the one who can seal up demons, right? But, I see. I couldn't think straight. Yasutoshi grabbed a handful of rice, took out the pickled plum inside and started to eat it. Yasutoshi said, I'd ask you how you sealed it, but I'm sure you'll ask me when it's done, right? He frowned, wondering if he tasted the pickled plums. Tomoaki, it can be done without any additional knowledge. A guy like him, who has a massive curiosity, might do something if he knew something. Tomoaki said deliberately without looking at me. Indeed. I was convinced, but I noticed a subtle feeling of anxiety or fear that was still in my heart. Anyway, I had free time until tomorrow evening. Tomoaki seemed to be busy, so Yasuyoshi and I took a walk in the temple to kill time. While I was offering incense to the Buddha, the chief priest, in the main hall, Yasutoshi was staring up at the ceiling. I was intrigued, so I looked at the ceiling and saw that a wooden crosspiece had been passed over the ceiling, and there were more than 20 wooden tags attached to the crosspiece. I thought to myself, oh, what a surprise. I thought. The name of the head priest of this temple for many generations. A voice came from behind us. It was the man who had guided me to the well. The one on the far right is the first generation. The one on the right is the first generation, and the one on the left is the second generation. As I recall, he was 26 or 27 generations before the priest who passed away this time. After saying this, he disappeared into the corridor. I counted the name tags and found only 24. I was relieved to see that it was more out of the ordinary than I had expected. However, Yasutoshi remained motionless as he stared at the nameplate of the first person. Do you know him? Oh. Really? You're a little too caught up in this. You're too caught up in it, you know that? Yasutoshi laughs. It was a smile that didn't suit Yasutoshi at the moment. It was already dark and the futon was already laid out in our room. Tomoaki was said to be taking turns with the other officials to stay awake. When we left the room, he said. Tomoaki said, "You will start to hear some noises tonight, but don't worry about it." "Don't worry about it," was all he said as he left. As soon as I went to bed and the area became quiet, I heard the noise. It was more of a meow than a sound. It sounded like a kitten's meow, like meow meow or new meow, which made me jump out of my skin, because I love cats. I was simply bored, so I decided to play. Yasutoshi's hand pressed down on my knee. It was so strong that it hurt. "It's not a cat. Don't ever go outside." His voice was low, as if he had been stifled. I felt cold for a moment and went back to the futon. It was a sweet kitten voice, the kind that makes you want to help it. Perhaps cat lovers would understand. As long as I didn't mind the voice, nothing happened, and before I knew it, it was morning. Perhaps I was tired from driving the car. Yasutoshi, who looked pale, was already awake. He said he couldn't sleep at all and said, "You have a very thick gimp." It was the first thing he said before wishing me a good morning. At noon, finally in the evening, I was hit by the biggest shock so far in this case. A person was hanging from a large tree in front of the well. To be precise, the body of the head priest. Eyes hollowed out. His jaw was tied, but his mouth was slightly open. A pale body with black discoloration all over the back. My mood of being somewhat of a sightseer had vanished. We had come to seal the demon. The body of the head priest was covered with numerous straw-braided shimenawa, or rope-like strands, stretching to the ground. The ground was stained black, probably from the contents of the priest's body, but there was no unpleasant odor. The firewood was piled up in a C-shape around the house, and if demons came out, they would close the gap, take down the abbot's body, and burn it together. Then the ashes and part of the priest's remains are placed in the well and sealed. That's it. It may just be an unusual cremation. The locals certainly wouldn't like it. Around 8 o'clock at night, it happened. I thought I heard kittens again, and then, although it was hard to see because of the bamboo cage, the ceiling rod on top of the well was repeatedly vibrating, as if it was being pushed up from below. The sound was a clattering sound. After a while, 1 or 2 sticks began to fall to the ground, and when the number exceeded 20, when the number of sticks exceeded 20, the bamboo cage made a crunching sound. It was as if something inside was trying to get out. As I held my breath and watched, the bamboo cage made a loud crunching sound and rolled to the ground. I swallowed hard and gulped. I can still hear the mew mew and the sound of something falling, and the kitten's voice gradually moves closer and closer to the suspended resident. I can't see it, but there is definitely something there. This must be the demon. After all this time, I realize that the kitten's voice is not one. I hear the voices of dozens of them. Fortunately, I can't see anything on the ground illuminated by the bonfire. I can't see anything. Before I knew it, I found myself relieved that I didn't have to see the monster I had wanted to see so badly. At the same time, I noticed that Yasutoshi was standing next to me and looked into his face. Yasutoshi had a look on his face that I had never seen before. I quickly took his arm and made him step back. Yasutoshi realized and thanked me. Sorry. You didn't think you could see me. Yasutoshi, oh. This guy is terrible. While I was saying this, the big branch on which the body was hung started to make a cracking sound. Yasutoshi unintentionally looked in that direction. But he immediately casts his eyes down. I looked too, but the body started spinning around even though there was no wind, and the hanging string was just moving eerily. A short time later, 4 Goiku, government officials, including Tomoaki, began to block the mouth of the letter C with firewood. When they finished plugging it up, they cut the source of the string that hung the priest with sutras and gongs, and dropped the body on the ground. The sound of something being crushed. I suddenly wondered if I was going to be caught for destroying a corpse or something. The 4 officials put wood chips, firewood, straw, etc. on top of the resident's body and set it on fire, which quickly grew louder than expected, and before long, the kittens had ceased to sing. The work from now on is to watch the fire until the bodies are reduced to bones, and we are burning people directly in front of us. It was a traumatic experience. The cremation was finally finished near dawn, and we were all groggy as if we had been intoxicated by the fire. I think we were probably sleepy, but I didn't feel sleepy at all. Most of the remains were placed in a wooden box, and the remaining bones were collected with the ashes and brought to us. Now, this is the last time, said the old man's voice. The uncle's voice. Tomoaki nodded and took the ashes and scattered them in the well. The remaining 3 priests continued chanting the sutra. Yasutoshi and I went to Tomoaki's place to help him seal the well, which took about 20 minutes. Demon sealing was complete. I was a bit jumpy, but I thought it was going to be a piece of cake. It was already getting light. I heard voices around the main hall and looked over to see the women who had prepared the meal, this time carrying a large amount of salt. They were purifying the entire garden, including themselves. They gave me 2 cloth bags of salt and I approached them to give one of them to Yasutoshi. Yasutoshi is still at the well. He has that look on his face again that he showed me earlier. Hey! Yasutoshi, I shouted. He slowly turns around. We're done sealing, aren't we? Hey! Maybe. That was Kosuke. There was a girl. Eyes closed, head held up. A naked girl about 4 to 5 years old. But there was a spider leg sticking out of her left shoulder and 3 spider legs sticking out of her right side. And there was a spider head on the left side of her neck. He was next to the well, and he sealed it up with him, didn't he? I said, are you still there? Me, is he still here? Yasutoshi, no, he's gone. I put a bamboo basket over him and he's gone. My stomach tightened. It's okay. I answered without any evidence. That night, Yasutoshi developed a high fever. After 2 days of being taken care of at Tomoaki's parents' house, we were on our way home. Tomoaki was with us on the way back and said he would drive as a token of his appreciation. I was relaxed, thinking that the view from the passenger seat was different from what I was used to. As we entered the city, I grabbed my seatbelt and said, brake, 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 brake. I had no idea that I would be yelling brake. I had no idea at the time. Laughter. On the way back to the car, Yasutoshi, who was in high spirits, drew a picture of what he saw and explained it to us. Tomoaki knew what the monster looked like and sympathized with him, saying, "You really saw it?" It seemed to be a baby head the size of a rice ball from a convenience store, with human arms and legs and spider legs attached to it at random. They grew from the base of the lower jaw, were slow-moving, and often turned over. Their eyes were closed for some reason, and their mouths were not where they were supposed to be, but behind the tip of their jaws, so when they fell down, I could see them clearly. Their meows sounded like kittens, which I knew. Dozens of them haunted the priest's body. And when the cremation began, they all stopped meowing at once and looked at the priest and his family with wide-open eyes and tears of blood. Hearing this, Tomoaki was speechless. For some reason, Yasutoshi never mentioned the girl who was next to the well. I didn't mention it either. I thought we made it home safe and sound. The most dangerous part for me was the ride home, and the ceiling incident was a bit of a surprise event. We decided to have an exorcism party in my room. After all, I had to ask Tomoaki about the reason for the ceiling this time. That would be the end of it. Yasutoshi and I drank shochu and Tomoaki drank beer, and Tomoaki started to talk. I don't know all the details either. For the 4 families of the Goiku, the ceiling has been handed down like an old tale, and you have to be the head of the family to understand it all. He holds the beer in his left hand and fishes for the knob. I was acting on behalf of my father this time, so the only new information I have is about the sealing rituals. Yasutoshi may find it interesting to talk about the etiquette, but Kosuke is probably not busy, so I'm going to tell him an old story that has been passed down in the Goiku family. It was around the beginning of the Edo period. There was a big war and many of the men in the village died. Lacking workers, the remaining villagers suffered from starvation. Nevertheless, after the war was over, life gradually returned to normal. Perhaps because of this, the villagers came to cherish spiders, which were prolific and did not let go of their prey after catching it in a net. In time, it is said that men always took care of spiders, and women were forbidden to touch them. The village code was established, which stated that it was forbidden to kill spiders. One day, a wedding took place at the home of the village headman. The second son of the head of the village came from a neighboring village to be his son-in-law. The young couple got along well, and the wife soon became pregnant. The head of the family was very happy, and there was not a day that went by that he did not ask if they had a grandchild yet. The owner and his wife were so happy that there was not a day that went by when they did not ask if they had a grandchild yet. However, the son-in-law, who came from a neighboring village, could not get used to the spiders. One day, his son-in-law is walking by a dry well when he sees the biggest spider he has ever seen. He kills the spider and throws it into the well, thinking that if the family finds it, he will be forced to take care of it. Unfortunately, his pregnant wife sees him doing so. Since killing spiders in a house with a pregnant woman was considered unlawful and unlucky, the wife blamed her husband. The wife tried to calm him down, but during the struggle, he accidentally fell into the well. He immediately called for help, but she was dead in the well, and to his dismay, her belly was ripped open, either from the impact of the fall or from hitting something, and a baby came out. It was a girl, but she did not survive, and the baby was buried at the bottom of the well without any memorial service. Some time later, at night, the cat-voiced apparition began. It is said that when people heard it, they would say, "Mama, Mama, Mama." Eventually, more and more of the household members were bitten by insects in several places on their bodies at night while they slept. The wounds were slow to heal and were accompanied by severe pain. These incidents were always on the night of the cat-voiced apparition, and rumors began to circulate that the young couple's children had been disguised by their hunger. At last, the son-in-law also encountered this apparition. Unlike usual, he was not gnawed but rather eaten, and he was bleeding badly. However, the son-in-law himself did not even feel any pain, and from then on, other people did not suffer from this strange phenomenon, but his son-in-law was eaten little by little, little by little. After the old couple lost their only daughter, they were very hard on their son-in-law, and when the son-in-law became the only target of the monster, they sent him away to their parents' house. However, when the son-in-law disappeared, the evil spread throughout the village. The village head of the neighboring village was obviously looking for his son-in-law, so he decided to call him back for the sake of the village. However, the head of the neighboring village could not stand by and watch his son being eaten by the monster, and refused the offer. The elderly couple, distressed, sent a messenger to a distant temple to ask for help in quelling the evil. When the temple staff received the news, they were troubled because they did not know how to quell such an apparition, and a traveling priest who was staying at the temple agreed to take on this task. When Unsu and his messenger arrived at the village, most of the villagers had been attacked by the mysterious creature and were dying as if from a plague. The messenger was terrified and tried to run away, but he managed to lead them to the house of the head of the village, but the old couple had already passed away. Unsu spent the night there, setting up a ward to discover the true nature of the apparition. A few days passed, and Unsu appeared to his son-in-law in a neighboring village. In front of his son-in-law and his parents, Unsu tells his story. The son-in-law must have killed a vicious spider. When his village knew that it worshipped a spider, an ancient evil spirit from far away came and possessed the spider. You have done a good thing. But the evil spirit, having left your flesh, now possessed your wife and tried to ensnare you. But the god attached to you would not allow it, and your wife was sent back to hell again. What I pity here is not only your wife but also the baby in her belly. It seems that the dead spider also had a child, and their souls are now mingled together. The well leads to the underworld and becomes a birth canal that gives birth to demons, and this is what happened as if a human child longed for its parents and a spider child ate its parents. You must be worshipped as the parent of these demons. They will eat you after your death, and you must lay their spirits to rest and build 4 houses in 4 directions until they are subdued. Later, under the guidance of Unsu, the son-in-law made a wish at the well and entered the priesthood. I took a sip of shachu, realizing I was still holding the cup. The nameplate I saw at the temple. The demon that has been going on for so long and has not yet attained Buddhahood. Yasutoshi was also looking a bit pale. We drank a lot and went to bed. When I woke up, I couldn't see Yasutoshi anymore. I tried to call him on his cell phone, but he didn't answer. A few days later, I received a letter from him. He apologized for his sudden disappearance and for not contacting me. Yasutoshi says that he is now shut up in a place and undergoing a purification ceremony. He says he is possessed by a girl he saw at the well. A fusion of a spider and a human. The thing that had to be sealed up the most. But why did he give it to Yasutoshi? Yasutoshi says that his son-in-law was given the name Taishun when he became a monk. It was the same name as Yasutoshi. He saw the nameplate at the temple and recognized it at a glance. Did the demons mistake him for his parents? I don't know if there is any other reason. We called the demon Spider Water Boy in our correspondence, but I still don't know what his real name is. We both concluded that the first myriad of demons Yasutoshi saw were more of the spider sex and went to eat their parents, while the girl next to the well was more of the human sex and longed for her parents. We do not know if the girl has always been there or if she came out because Yasutoshi was there. It seemed that the existence of the girl was unknown to the 4 Gyoji, including Tomoaki. The temple had a new chief priest. What a Tomoaki! He had never even imitated a monk before. It was like a sacrifice. In fact, I guess it was. Tomoaki was crying. I'll go to next time. A long time has passed since then. Yasutoshi has yet to appear. When I arrived home at my apartment, I found a letter in my mailbox. It was a plain brown envelope with black ink. It was definitely from Yasutoshi. I was worried because he had been away for a while this time, but he seemed to be in good health. The letters and the address are powerful. He entered the room and cut the seal. Despite the words on the envelope, the letter was in disarray. I look away from the letter and try to remember an event that happened a long time ago. which comes vividly to the surface of my mind. The letter contained only an address and the words, "I'm waiting for you." There had been an anomaly. And Yasutoshi is asking for my help. I threw everything I needed into my bag and headed for the station. As I got off the train and headed for the station gates, my eyes met those of a monk. He was young but had scary eyes. What in the world does a monk have to keep looking at to have eyes like that? I wondered. He came up to me standing there silently, said, "This way," and walked out with my luggage. The car took us to our destination in about an hour, a place that seemed like it would be a good fit for a monk, but it wasn't. Let's just say that it wasn't. I'll just mention that it was a place that seemed to suit the monk. It was obvious that if I had been alone, I would have compared the address with the one on the letter and been stuck there. I entered through the back door and proceeded down the hallway with the small garden on my left. There was a woman in kimono, maybe 15 to 6 years old, sitting with her back to me on a garden stone a short distance away. I felt something a little distorted. Just as I had walked halfway around the garden, I turned to the right. The atmosphere changed drastically, and I felt as if I had been pinched by a fox. Suddenly, a young monk walking in front of me stops. "How are you feeling?" I told him how I felt. He replied, "It seems that whatever possessed you also has fallen away. The area around the corner is warded off, so evil things and possessed people cannot enter. Now, please come this way." I was led to a room. There were already 2 guests in the room, and when I saw one of them, I shouted. I looked at one of them and exclaimed, "Yasutoshi?" He probably laughed. His lips moved slightly. There, emaciated and reduced to skin and bones, sat Yasutoshi quietly in his monk's robe. Tears welled up in my eyes and I involuntarily clung to him and held his hand. He squeezes my hand back unexpectedly strongly. At that moment, the flame of hope was lit. I thought to myself, this guy is still okay. I looked up. I heard a muffled sound, voice, Kanki soda, nai, haka. This was the reason why he wrote letters and did not use his cell phone. I was about to cry again and finally replied, "Shut up." I nodded. Yasutoshi is relying on me. I decided. Yasutoshi was taken out of the room by a young monk. I and the monk, who was probably Yasutoshi's grandfather, remained alone in the room. The monk said in a thick but gentle voice, "Kosuke. Kosuke-kun. I am sorry to have bothered you today. I am Yasutoshi's grandfather and my name is Dashan. As you have just seen, Yasutoshi will not live long if things continue as they are. He is no longer gnawing at my flesh, but his thoughts are reaching me, and he is growing thinner and thinner by the day. The more Yasutoshi declines, the more his daughter grows into a woman, into a mother. She already looks like a 20-year-old girl. Time is running out." The seated, distorted impression of a woman I saw in the garden. Was that the grown-up version of the little girl Yasutoshi saw at the well? I was horrified. When I told him about it, he said. I told him that I had seen the little girl at the well, and he said, "Well, neither New Year's Eve sealing nor season sealing nor year sealing will work. If it's so bad that even you can see it, it must be returned to the well." Suddenly, the monk straightened his posture and bowed to me. "I'm going to put Yasutoshi down into the well and give him up to the demons. I want you to save my grandson." He said in a hushed voice, "I want you to save my grandson." I responded shortly, "Yes." I answered shortly, "Yes. My name is Yasutoshi. I am at the bottom of a cursed well. It is shaped like the bottom of a flask and is unexpectedly wide, making it difficult to illuminate the entire area even with the flame of the torch in my hand. It is obvious that the bottom of an ordinary well has been modified later, and a fill can be seen in one corner. It is likely that the water child was buried here. The bottom of the well has turned into a mausoleum for the daughter of the water child." At some point, I began to hear a new voice. "The daughter has not appeared yet. For a moment, a strange sensation as if I had fallen into the water hit my body. Pain runs through my body immediately, and boom, smash, Billy. Flesh is torn and blood is dripping. The fear of being eaten alive. I couldn't see it, but the spider water creature had begun to eat my body. I had somehow become their father. I somehow felt that this would save Tomoaki. I still can't speak. I waited desperately for my daughter to appear, but the pain was unbearable. However, the pain became unbearable and I threw the container of my blood against the wall. The feeling of being in heavy water fades away. But it soon returns to normal. Just as I was about to lose my mind, I felt a different sensation. That distorted sensation. A smiling woman. No, the daughter of the first Yasutoshi and mother of Spider Water Child. The master of the well. No, the well itself? In my foggy consciousness, I spoke to her for the first time. As if I was thinking it over in my mind, each word with all my heart. I, the Father, do not desire the Lord's return to the world. Quickly, go back. He threw a sutra-like object, stained with his own blood, over his daughter and into the dirt. Fireworks lit up the area. She crumpled up with a sad look on her face, as if her skin was peeling off. A sound like a pitter-patter can be heard. Is it the sound of Spider Water Boy falling? There were many blue ball-like objects in its wake, but they too were sucked into the ground. The color was sad and fleeting. I was told later that it was called Haku, spirit. Just before I lost consciousness, I felt the rope around my body tighten. Was it a single word that lifted the curse that had been in place for so long that it was mind-boggling? Did the strength of Yasutoshi I's feelings as a father contribute to the birth of this demon? Why did the traveling ensue? In the midst of the storm of questions, I suddenly woke up. The sliding door opened and the sharp-eyed young monk peeked out. When he saw that I was awake, he came into the room with Yasutoshi and Dashan. I was lying in the room where Yasutoshi had been holed up. As I sat up, fighting back the pain, my body burning from the wound, Yasutoshi came up to me and said briefly, "Go back to sleep," he said shortly. He looked at me with a strong gaze. He's all right now, I thought. I smiled back at him. I can't thank you enough for taking my grandson's place. Although only those who have a connection with both Yasutoshi and demons can perform the Tensu no Ho, it was still an outside method, considering the damage to your body and mind. I am sorry for that. But it is also true that this was the only way to save Yasutoshi. Forgive me. The monk bowed deeply. I replied in a small voice, immersed in a sense of accomplishment and some loneliness, "No. It was for the sake of my two best friends." I answered in a small voice. "Ha ha ha. I'm glad to hear you say that. You saved 3 people. I am grateful. But I don't think I'm going to have a good death. A curse is worth 2 sins. Oh, dear. Well, I have some work to do, so I'll leave you now. Yasutoshi. Talk to him for a while." Bowing to me once again, the monk left the room with the young priest. Yasutoshi and I remained in the room in silence for a while. It was a silence because Yasutoshi could not make up his mind to say something. He said, "Why are you doing this now? Say what you want to say now." I started. Yasutoshi smiled. It was the first good smile I had seen in a long time. "We've both been bitten by the bug a little, but you're a little smarter now." He said his usual hateful words. "Kosuke. I'll tell you what you're probably wondering. She used to be an ordinary spider water girl. She was sealed up and cannibalized in the well, and the well absorbed her motherly power, making her powerful. It is the traveling cloud water mentioned in Tomoaki's story. His name is Nisho." "Yasutoshi, how do you know so much?" "Yasutoshi, yeah. Because he's my ancestor. He is. She's an assassin from the past against our family, so to speak. The first Yasutoshi is my flesh and blood parent. I am his bloodline, the father of demons. It was not only because of my name that he called me his parent. Me, why would Nisho curse those of his bloodline? Yasutoshi, because the whole family tried to kill him. Even now. Me, what? What is that? Yasutoshi, no, it's okay. This matter is completely settled thanks to you. As Grandpa said, I thank you too. After all, I was just sleeping here, letting you eat my hair. You did a good job of helping me out of my half-heartedness. I really appreciate it. I've decided to take over the house. My father will be back, and Grandpa's other business will be settled in a few days. Then I'll finally become a monk. Yasutoshi smiled. His eyes told me there was nothing more to talk about. Yasutoshi is going his own way. He can't be a fool like he used to be anymore. And I will probably be able to go back to my old life. Tomoaki too. The sense of accomplishment and loneliness I felt. I wondered if I had actually lost my friend when I thought I had saved him. Behind the open sliding door. The light outside was strangely dazzling.